Ladies and gentlemen, before we end our event today, it is a great pleasure for me to invite Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Zainal Abidin Ibni Tuanku Mohriz, founding president of the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs Ideas, for the closing plenary. Please welcome.
Thank you very much. 4 minutes. Lillian, you wanted 3 main things to come out of this, right? For me, these are number 1. YB Chen, you were talking about ways in which to legally get refugees into our universities. And I think that should build on the amazing work that many civil society organizations have done. Deborah's here, at YCK, we've been doing that. At ID's Academy, we've been doing that, finding legal ways, using the private sector to get refugees educated. And with that, bring a whole body of evidence to then show to politicians, look, we in the private sector can do it. There was no, and in fact, there's good economic returns for this. And, there's less social order problems that you accuse will happen if you allow this policy. So that's number 1. Number 2, greater public education. The stories that began this conference today with the Prophet's own migration. These are things that should be disseminated amongst all those who, the netizens that Ustad Tamizi was talking about, who have a hostile policy. You've got to show them that actually, it is an Islamic tradition that we welcome refugees. And then number 1, number 2, to then also learn from the concrete examples of other Muslim countries. The deputy head of mission from Turkey was saying the amazing things that they're doing, and the story of President Erdogan saying, for every 1 lira that we put into this, 10 lira comes back. So again, public education of Malaysians is key to this, because ultimately that lays the foundations for even more greater policy change. I'm very glad that the paper that Ideas did on the economic contributions that will arise if refugees are allowed to work, in terms of over 4,000 jobs generated for Malaysians and over 3 billion ringgit generated for the local economy. I'm very glad that that's still being quoted. And we're doing another paper now on the impact of COVID-19. This is a paper that we're doing with UNICEF. The impact of COVID-19 on refugees in Malaysia, and how we can use more evidence-based policies to address that. But the point is that the more that these papers are circulated, the more that there's evidence from particularly from private sector and civil society partnerships, the more that we can make progress. The title of today is moving, high round table, but moving the agenda forward. And the agenda has already moved forward so much in the last few years. It's actually unthinkable a few years ago that you'd have a foreign minister here saying what he said about refugee policy, refugee rights, and then to have so much bipartisanship here and at IIUM. And that segues into the last point I want to make, which is the intangibles. I was in Bosnia last month, and I met people in politics, I met people in academia, in business, and in civil society in Bosnia. And a lot of them were educated right here at UIA, right? And there's a whole cohort of Bosnians there in middle to high level positions who have such goodwill for Malaysia, right? And Bosnia is a country which is recently stabilized. They have so much that they need to do in terms of development still. They need help with infrastructure. They want to improve their universities. And you have all these Bosnians who already have this goodwill with Malaysia. The problem with Bosnia doing things with the Arab world, with Turkey, with China, with the US, with the EU, is that all of these countries and regions come with the geopolitical baggage, right? But Malaysia is a small country, so we can do things that a lot of these other countries can't, but we have that goodwill. Why? Because of that extraordinary generosity that we showed. Generosity, I say generosity not because generosity in comparison to how Malaysian government has treated refugees from other parts of the world. So actually Bosnia was a high point. And I think we really should learn from that. Very happy that Professor Tan Sri Zul made that point early on, that UIA is ready to receive them. Hats off to UIA. Second one, Australia. I was in Australia some years ago, met some Vietnamese people who were in Terengganu, right, in the 1970s. Despite the fact that back then we were being criticized, and despite the fact that we look back now and say, it's terrible, we should have had a better policy. Despite that, the Vietnamese Australians who I met, when they found out I was Malaysian, were full of gratitude. Malaysia saved my life, right? So this is another example of the goodwill that's generated. And the third example I'm going to give is our kids at YCK, right? And I've now been at Yayasan Chow Kit for 12 years since the beginning. So we had alumni who relocated to the US. Even they, same as the Vietnamese Australians, Malaysia saved my life, YCK saved my life, and now I want to give back to Yayasan Chow Kit today. So these are some of the intangibles, the long-term impacts that you can't see, you can't quantify. There are economic benefits, there are also diplomatic benefits, and of course they make us all better as citizens, not only of Malaysia but of the world. So these are the takeaways. Thank you, Lilian, for inviting me here, and good luck for everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Zainal Abidin. Next, it is a great pleasure for me to invite Tan Sri Dr. Syed Hamid Albar, former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Malaysia, Chairman of the World Islamic Economic Foundation, and Chair of the Malaysian Advisory Group on Myanmar for the closing plenary. Please welcome.
I think I consider myself as the most unlucky to speak last. And I think at 1:20, everyone is waiting for lunch. So there is an acronym, you say, keep it short and simple, stupid. So anyway, thank you very much, Lilian, for inviting me. Yang Amat Mulia Tunku Zain, Ibni Tunku Mukhris, Yang Berhormat Ustaz Tamizi Sulaiman, and ahli-ahli yang berhormat yang lain. First of all, I think I wish that we were not the last speakers, because I think the hall is the Senate, which is a great Senate, is almost empty with decision makers or policy makers. Anyway, I'm very happy that you are able to form this group, the what you call yourself as the All-Party Parliamentary Group Malaysia. I've been wanting this for a long time, and ultimately you have formed yourself into this group. And I think what is very clear in the discussion is that we almost converge on all points. We agree to the challenges and problems. So the only thing is, I look at, we have discussed about ideal situation. We have discussed about practical solution. We have exchanged ideas. We have made proposal. But at the same time, we have also discussed about the problem, the obstacles. But most of us don't touch how do you overcome the obstacles. Say, for example, Yang Berhormat just now mentioned about the Bosnian. We have taken Bosnian, we have taken, but there are legal issues that we need to address. These are people with documents. There are two groups. As far as Malaysian law is concerned, all people without documents are all illegals. They do not distinguish between refugees and non-refugees. So I think you have discussed that problem. I think the most immediate, what our friend, the human rights guy is saying is, the long-term solution is not difficult because we have identified. And I think Lilian and the IUM, the team, they will come up with a proposal. There is also a white paper. But the most important thing that you need to overcome is the problem of advocacy, the Malaysian public. You need to change the Malaysian, it's no longer, I wish like what you see, and you can move from one country to another. Beautiful during your time. But that was after the nation states was established. When we are all so nationalistic, Malaysians do not like now. He has got the right, Yang Berhormat has got the right question. Where is the money coming from? It's the Malaysian public. The minister may be making one announcement about opening schools to the refugee children, but the public are objecting to it. So I think there is a lot of work. So I congratulate this for the Lilian. I think some people say, why should we celebrate refugees? I think the idea is to create consciousness in order for us to understand, while we are living with so much humanity and sense of justice, there are also people who are facing problems. And I think I like what my favorite, I have got a poem that, I know is late for me to mention, but this poem is quite nice. It's done by Khalil Gibran. It's my favorite poem. He says that safeguarding the right of others is the most noble and beautiful end of a human being. I think that's what you are doing. You are trying to save the life of others, but there is a lot of work that is needed. Lillian has prepared for me a very long statement for me, closing remarks. I wanted to read everything, but I think the challenge is actually, we cannot wait for peace to return to all these countries. If you wait for peace to return, there will be no peace, I think, in Myanmar. The 5-point consensus point will not work. ASEAN, I think our foreign minister is very popular now because he makes that. And I think Malaysia has always, the good thing about Malaysia, we have always made our own view known. We lead the way in terms of ASEAN. All the ASEAN members, ASEAN have no common position in terms of politics. Singapore is easy because you don't have refugees at all. You don't allow them to enter. So it's only us. When Thailand feel the pressure, they open up the borders and let Malaysia receive the refugees. And then Malaysia, we have done a lot of good things like Tunku just mentioned. But are we selling it well? We are not selling it well. Because so Syria will not have peace, Palestine will not have peace. We didn't discuss about Palestine. The Palestinians, but they have done very well. We should take a lesson from the European. You see the Ukraine crisis, when the Ukraine crisis happened, the whole borders were open. Everybody volunteered. So I think ASEAN is not doing that. ASEAN is not doing. So we need to support. I am very happy that our foreign minister today come and listen to us. So I have got about 2 of my friends who are Rohingya, they were refugees. They came here until they get PhD. I've got in Afghanistan who became a professor, but they refugees. They are thankful to Malaysia, but they get their PR, but ultimately they do not get their citizenship. So I think there is a lot of things that we need to do. So anyway, congratulate Lillian, and I think the challenge is daunting. I think the way that I look at all your discussion, there have been many substantive, many strategies and suggestions and concrete steps that you have put in. I'm about to close. In closing, let me take what Lillian has reminded. See, he gave me a very good, another great poet that I'm philosopher that I also like to read. And this Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth into the heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Let us all awake that while we are living and embracing all the peace and the humanity, we need to do a lot more for other people. Congratulations. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Tan Sri, for the closing plenary. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of our event today. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to say thank you to all our panels and guests for their support today, and also to our VIPs for giving their time to attend this event. I would like to apologize if there are any shortcomings. Fellow guests are invited to have some lunch at the banquet hall after this. Until we meet again, I'm Daniel Bahardin. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and have a pleasant day.